Hey, this is Wylene Benson, and today it is time to clean house. We're going to get rid of all those negative thoughts. Thanks for being with me today. I'm excited for what we're going to share. So how do you get rid of a negative thought? What if a thought just comes into your mind without you asking for it, without you even knowing that it's there? You kind of get blindsided by it. What do you do when you get this negative thought? How do you get rid of it? One of the things that I love to do is when I have a negative thought come in, I'll just look at it. And this negative thought is only negative if we perceive it as negative. If I say to myself, wow, that's a negative thought, and I really focus on that, and I entertain this idea that this is a negative thought, then it is a negative thought. But if I just sit and look at it for a minute, is that negative? Could it possibly be positive? Is there a way that I could perceive it as positive? And just take a moment and look at it, then many times, and I would say probably most times, we can actually find some sort of a positive spin on it. I'm going to share with you an experience that I had with my foot. This was my left foot. I had some pain in the spot just behind the toes on the top of my foot, like not quite up on the arch of the foot, but kind of in between the toes and the arch. And there was a little bit of pain there. And I noticed that it was red and it had this concentration of blood vessels there. And it was just that way for months. And I didn't really know what was causing it. I hadn't bumped it. I hadn't dropped anything on my foot. There was really no reason for that to be there, but there was some pain there. And it was also had this little red spot on my foot. So I just kind of looked at it. And at first I saw it as a negative thing. And I was like, man, I got this pain in my foot. What is this? But the next instant, I just listened to my foot. I just looked at my foot and I just asked the question, what's the message? What's the message that this thing has for me? And of course I was in a meditative state. I have talked a lot about going to meditation, doing a GPS, all the different things that we talk about to get really clear and present so that we can be open to receive an answer. And that's kind of where I was. And the visualization that came to me, it was like this picture that came into my mind. This might sound kind of gruesome, but it was like a railroad spike that been driven through my foot, and it was holding me stationary in one place. And it was like I had a desire to move forward, but there was a part of me that wanted to stay where I was. And so I had energetically driven this railroad spike through my foot to make sure that I stayed put. No matter how much I wanted to move forward, that I would not be able to move forward. That was some really good information. And so now, all of a sudden, this wasn't a negative thing. It wasn't a negative thought about my foot, that it was hurting or whatever. It was a positive thing. It was like, whoa, thank you so much, foot, for telling me what's been going on in my life. And so I was able to look at that, and I was able to create some new beliefs about moving forward, about wanting to move forward, and preparing myself to move forward so that it didn't feel so scary to move forward. So that would be number one, is if you have a negative thought and you want to get rid of it, is that you look at it, and then, is it really negative? Maybe asking, just looking at it and asking, is this really a negative thing, or is there something positive about it? Is there some reason? What is the message? What is the message that this, quote, negative thought is trying to give me? And another thing that you can do is, as you're looking at this thought, and as long as we see a thought as negative, then we're going to put a negative spin on it. We're going to put a negative connotation on it. We're going to talk about it negatively. We're going to share it with other people and say, this is what's happening in my life, and isn't this negative, and isn't this horrible? So perceiving it as negative kind of perpetuates itself. It actually creates a bigger and bigger negative in your life, and it actually even spreads sometimes to other people, so that other people can feel that negative as well. If we want to get rid of a negative thought, nobody ever got rid of a negative thought by being more negative. So the important thing is to begin being positive. So I'm going to invite you to watch your language. And what I mean by that is, let's say that there is a pain, like in my foot. I had a pain in my foot. Well, pain, what kind of a connotation does that have? Is that a positive connotation or a negative connotation? So if I'm talking about this pain in my foot, that's more negative, right? So let's find a different way to talk about this, whatever is going on, whatever the idea is, the thought. Let's find ways to say it so that it is more positive. So I'm going to replace the word pain with feeling. I had a feeling in my foot. Same thing, right? But a much more positive connotation. So what I did was I just immediately shifted the energy from negative to positive, or negative to neutral even. You can just shift it to neutral. To shift out of a negative thought, at least go to neutral by changing the wording. So I have this feeling in my foot, and now I can look at it from a neutral space. I don't have to look at it from a negative space. I can look at it from a neutral space. And then what is this thought, or what is this idea, or what is this feeling, whatever it is, trying to tell me? What is the message? And then be open to receive what that message is. A lot of times we perceive it as a negative, and so we don't want to even know what the message is because we're afraid it's going to be more negative. But really, our bodies and our emotions and our thoughts are just alarm systems. They're just an opportunity for us to take a look at something that's not working in our lives. And so it really is a positive thing to look at it, just to be open to look at it and to see it, and then change that wording so that you can see it from a slightly different connotation, maybe not so negative, but at least neutral. And then once you can be in a neutral space, then we can use belief breakthrough. And then once you're able to see this thought or this idea or this feeling in a neutral space, then you're in a place where you actually have control, that you get to choose what this thought or feeling, you get to choose where this goes. You get to choose to entertain it. You get to choose to turn it into something positive. You get to choose to totally throw it out if it's not serving you. There's multiple different ways that you could, things that you could do with this thought once you're in a neutral space. And the cool part is that once you're in that neutral space, it's much easier to move into positive. So not only you're just getting rid of the negative, but you're creating an opportunity for you to step into positive. And so in my situation where I looked at this not as pain, but as a feeling, all of a sudden this was information. And so I was able to ask, what does this information mean? And it took me into a positive of, now I can make a change. I'm in control. I get to make a change and choose what I want. And now it becomes a positive. It's like something to be grateful for. Okay, so the first thing when you notice a negative thought is just to look at it and just see it for what it is. The second thing is to shift it into neutral. Change your language. Watch your language. Change it into something that is neutral rather than something that carries a painful or a fearful connotation to it, like shifting from pain to feeling. The third thing is then to take control. Once you're in a neutral space, you have the control to actually move it into a positive. Always you're going to shift to positive by being positive. So choose to be positive. So get rid of that negative thought by taking yourself to a neutral space, changing the connotation and the perception of it, and then choosing to be positive. All right, so which of those negative thoughts did you identify are holding you back? So comment below. Let me know what you've discovered about yourself. I'd love to hear.